Hey, I'm Jay Beershank. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. We're here for another edition of the International Contract Job playlist, and this time I'm going to discuss the actual lifestyle and kind of routine and what you can expect if you end up getting a commercial fishing job in Alaska on a gill netter or a seining boat, or really any other boat, whether that be a tender or any kind of live-in commercial fishing job. Okay, I've made two other videos. Those jobs go over the pay and kind of go over what gill netting and the other job seining would be. But this one will just kind of go over the practicalities of daily life, okay? So people are disillusioned from what they can expect actually going on these boats, because even though this is an amazing opportunity that's extremely easy to get into and has an extremely high pay threshold, it's a pretty intense job, okay? So you usually work with the tides and gill netting, okay? So this means that you're working during the period in which the tide is coming in and coming out. That's how you're deciding when and where you will fish. Because of the seasonality of particularly the sockeye salmon run, which is a gill netting season in Bristol Bay, Alaska, since it's only about a month long, the captains and you too will try to maximize the amount of time that you can fish, because you're trying to catch the absolute most amount of fish in 1 month, because that is how you get paid, okay? So it is not uncommon to work for 20 hours a day, 20 hours plus, because you're fishing for the entire tide. The tide can sometimes be 18 hours or so. And then after you finish the tide, you then have to take the boat back to a tender. A tender are the big boats which store 1 million plus pounds of fish and collect all of the fish from the smaller fishing vessels. And also part of your job, if you're a deckhand, will be to take the fishing boat to the tender, hook up the cranes, bring out the bags of fish and dump those onto the tender, restock all of that and get it all ready for the next tide, which usually after everything's all said and done is happening within an hour or two. So you will sleep very, very little, okay? You will be extremely tired a lot. I guarantee you that, okay? So that's something you have to be prepared for. It was always very taxing on me. And it takes a while for my body to kind of get back into a rhythm after I do this. I think that it is something that is very hard on the body to get such little sleep for nearly a month straight, okay? So being aware of that is really important, okay? Another thing to be really aware of is when you're tired, you are working with machinery that is moving quickly. You're working with winches and cranes and heavy things that can easily hurt you, okay? So not only are you with the drum that lets out the net, this is a dangerous thing. You're working with the cranes as they pick out the bags of the fish. You know, there are many moving components on fishing vessels which you can get very hurt by if you're not being careful. And obviously, as you become more tired further into the season, it can become very easy to just kind of be going through the motions and doing your work. And if you're not on point and not focused, you can get seriously injured, okay? Seriously injured. So that's a really important thing to be aware of. And I'm not trying to scare anybody. I was never really in any kind of dangerous situations. I mean, of course, I was always in danger, but I never felt like, okay, you know, this is something that I just could have lost my life or could have lost my hand. But small decisions could have led to very big consequences in that regard. And it's easy to find yourself slipping kind of in and out of a prime focus when you're so tired, okay? So also being aware that you're going to be in a constant situation where you're constantly surrounded by very hazardous situations, okay? So those two things are very important. Another thing is the social aspect of being on a boat with other people. So on a gill netter, the boat is 32 feet long, and on a seiner, I think it's around 50 feet long. Either way, these are not big spaces for 4 to 6 people to be together, you know, for a long period of time. Especially on the gill netters, because on a seiner or on a tender, for example, on a tender, it's a much bigger boat, so you have more space. And on the seiner, it's like a 2-day, 2-off kind of scenario. So you fish 2 days and have 2 days then to go back to shore, blah, blah, blah. But on a gill netter, you will be working 20 hours a day for 1 month, and you will be on this boat, not leaving, sleeping there, hanging out with these people for 4 days, okay? So you never really know who you're gonna end up on the boat with unless you know the captain or you know the crew already. So you're gonna end up in a situation with strangers, and you're gonna be stuck with these strangers in a very tight space, everybody's tired and everybody is working and kind of relying on each other to not only make sure that everybody, does their job well enough so everybody makes the most money, but also making sure that people do their job in a way that keeps everybody safe. Because obviously the people who you work with can also put you in a lot of danger if they're not doing things safely. So being able to kind of navigate the social situation is extremely important in commercial fishing. And I would say that what I saw more common than not was, rather than people's bodies breaking down, people go crazy. They have a bit of a mental breakdown, whether that's because maybe they're not used to hard work, or maybe they're not used to the long hours, or maybe they're not used to being away from home, or whatever it might be. A lot of people start getting very kind of depressed or very kind of angry or negative, and then they're trapped there and you're trapped with them. So making sure that you can remain calm, keep a level head, and do what you need to do to make sure that you're taking care of yourself in that regard, and making sure that you're also able to navigate social situations in a healthy way, because you will be stuck with these people and you'll be needing to keep your sanity and also keep the peace. So that's a very important part too, okay? And like I said, it is taxing on the body. I mean, particularly gill netting, it can get very, very cold. You're going to be very, very wet, and you're picking fish out of the net all day long. So my hands would get so inflamed and so sore that I couldn't even really move my fingers. They were just completely inflamed and stuck the way that they were. And they get cold, and they just get a lot of kind of nerve damage is happening there. And it took me about 2 weeks after I got off the boat for my hands to recover. Okay, but this is part of the job, right? And so there is a lot of heavy lifting to be done. There's a lot of cardio involved, because on the gill netter, you are working nonstop, and you're picking the fish, and then you're putting the fish in the holes, and then you're taking the fish out of the holes, and it's just can be very, very intense work. So that's definitely something to keep in mind too, is that you can end up having to work very, very hard. But the reason why all of this doesn't matter is because of the potentiality for you to make a lot of money in a very short period of time with no expenses, okay? So me personally, I think I'm a fairly smart, very active, fit guy. So I felt like I was able to keep my wits about me, keep myself safe, and able to endure this to make the process not only valuable, but worth it. Because it's a cool experience to have. It's a cool job. It's a cool thing to do. I wouldn't make it my career. I wouldn't be a routine commercial fisherman because of all the things that I've mentioned. I don't think it's the healthiest job. I don't think it's the most fun. I don't think it's the most rewarding, but it is one where you can make serious cash, okay? So those are some things to keep in mind. Another thing to kind of be aware of is you will always be able to save your money. So whether you're living on the boat full-time on a gill netter, or whether you're on a seiner, or whether you're on a tender, there might be chances for you to spend money, but more likely than not, there won't even be any chances for you to spend money. And you'll be eating all of the food that is provided to you on the boat. You'll be sleeping on the boat. So at the end of the season, you will be able to get your cash, and not have to spend a cent. Only thing to be aware of is, as I've talked about in another video, the pay is conditional on a couple different variables. So you may find yourself working 20-hour days, and during this time period, you don't know how much you're going to end up with, right? So if you end up working a month of 20-hour days and you only make, let's say 10 grand or something, if you break down your hours, you can realize that you were working for, $3 an hour or something insane like this. But like I said, this is the risk and the chance that you take to go up there and potentially make, $1,000 an hour, right? Because you can go up there and make 40, 50 grand, right? So not quite $1,000 an hour. But anyway, the chance to make extreme amount of money is also there. But then the chance that your, wage per hour is also much lower. So what I'm saying is you can work very hard for maybe not the equivalent amount of money for that kind of hard work. But this is all part of the game, and it's all part of the chance to take. So those are a couple things that I would definitely keep in mind when I'm thinking about doing this job. So many people think that it's a job only for men. There are tons of women that do this job. It's just like any other thing. Like, obviously the dynamics are different for men and women, and the job will be different if you're a woman going into a industry that's predominantly men. So that's definitely something to be aware of. And like always, you know, like I said about the social situations, whether you're a man or a woman, it is kind of maybe smart if you're really afraid of the potential social situation, maybe figuring out who your captain is a bit and figuring out who your crew is a bit. For me, I was just glad to be able to get a job. I got a job quickly and I went up there and I was willing to take any situation that was handed to me, and it ended up being completely fine. But, you know, you got to take care of yourself and know what you're capable of and know what you can handle and know what you want to handle, know what you're willing to deal with. So there's definitely precautions that you can take, you know, with a vetting process, and maybe talking to some other people on online forums and reaching out to people that may have worked on that boat before and figuring out some things like that. But anyway, those are some things to be really aware of when you go into commercial fishing. Long hours, hard work, surrounded by people, but you're able to save a lot of money and you have the potential to make a very, 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 very large paycheck at the end of it. And you'll get in great shape. You'll be working very hard, but the lack of sleep will take a toll on you. Your hands will suffer a bit, but everything heals and you will be fine at the end of the day. And hopefully you will walk away with a, you know, a very large check. I'm making these videos so people know that I am creating an online school group. This is a paid community where I'm trying to bring people together to not only help people get high-paying international contract jobs, which I've talked about and I will continue talking about on this channel, but also so that people can make the money from these contract jobs, and if they would like, another part of the group will be investment strategies, short-term, long-term, you know, active trading and passive trading and investing, and how you can set yourself up to make a lot of money and then invest that money to then hopefully in the future not have to work, because we will set ourselves up with, you know, different strategies that can produce income. And then if you're not interested in investing and you just want to make a lot of money and experience things, well, I've been traveling full-time for the past decade. So another aspect of that online school group will be, you know, how to travel long-term with the minimum amount of money. I have a lot of different apps and tricks and things like that that I've been able to find out over 10 years of traveling that enable me to be able to share ways in which people can have a multitude of experiences depending on what they want to do, okay? And if you're interested in joining that group, I'm going to put a link down in the bio. You can click on it, fill it out, and get on the email list. I'll launch it in about a month, and this group will become exponentially more valuable as more people join. So in the beginning, it will be fairly cheap, and it will increase in price because all of these contract jobs that I talk about become much easier to get when there's a community of people that also have them, because most of these jobs are word of mouth, and a community is always more valuable when there's more people, right? So anyway, I appreciate you watching. I hope you got some value out of this video, and I will see you on the next one. Peace. Thank you.